Hello, folks. I am going to demo today what I've been working on. I've been talking about it since the offsite, and just wanted to share initial progress here. Nowhere near complete, but just wanted to kind of introduce people to where my mind's at. So we're on the code screen here that represents what happens when you go to the screen to accept a group invite. And we know we've had some tricky issues with that. It's a really complicated feature, as simple as it seems at the outset, just due to the nature of our application. And so I kind of wanted to show through how that was set up previously and how it would be set up in a normal application, and then how I've gone and changed that and my motivations behind doing so. So if we scroll through, this is React code. I'm not going to go into any React code, but just kind of want to show the complexity of it. We have ways of controlling the look of our application. Let me make this a little bit bigger. The look of our application, as well as the behavior of our application. And React is really good at representing the look of our application, and it's not very good at representing the behavior of our application. Those are two very different things in programming land. So you see, we've got look, we've got behaviors, new group, allow group. All these things are behaviors, things that interact with the outside world. And then we've got more behaviors, and then scroll through this enormous block of code, more behavior, and then some look. And so we want to keep in mind that React is very good at determining how things look based on some kind of information, like, for example, the group invite metadata. They're going to show an avatar with the group invites image URL and group name. And you guys could read through this and see, okay, yeah, that's reasonable enough. But then reading through this behavior code, even to me, I got to admit, it takes a while to even parse what's going on. And so I want to kind of show why that is. So I dumped this into ChatGPT. This is what I like to do when I refactor. And I asked it to generate a diagram for me, a flowchart of behavior, if you will. And so you can see from looking at this flowchart, first we start, then we're loading some data. If we're loading, we show a loading indicator. If there's an error loading, we display an error message. If there's not an error loading, we display some group info. Then we check our join status based on some API call. And then if it's pending, then we have to wait and see. I mean, this just look at this. This is insane. This is just one feature. And so as I'm reading through that code over here, I have to keep all this in my mind as a developer. And to be honest with you, that's very difficult. Let's see, in 3 minutes. I'll try and get through this in less than 7 minutes or so. So anyway, our code is complex in React because we're managing state and the look. We're managing behavior and how the app actually looks. And in order to reduce that complexity, we need to represent this behavior in a way with a tool that's built for representing behavior. And so that's where state charts come into play. And so this is just an image of a state chart, and represents the behavioral flow of that screen. And this code here, which looks very different, I'm not going to go into too much of the detail here, but basically I do want to show that our code has states. So it's in a loading group invite metadata state. And so you can read that as a shareholder, stakeholder, and understand what's going on there. Waiting for user action. These are all different states that this particular behavior can be in. There's a lot of nuance here based on the feature, but basically each state represents something that can happen. And so as a developer, this makes it easier for me to look into this state and see what's going on. And I can even read a nice description. In this state, the UI will display a button to the user to allow them to begin the group join process. Some potential improvements to this flow would be to have a state prior, yada, 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 yada. So this is all readable. And then basically in a state, there are different things that can happen. In this state, I can receive a user did tap join group event, and I can target attempting to join group, which is what happens in this screen here. But I've broken down this behavior into many different pieces. And so the code isn't so interesting, but what is interesting is that immediately from this code, I can derive a flowchart. And so here's my flowchart that represents the logic of this screen. And even cooler, I can simulate that logic and say, okay, cool. I'm in the loading group invite metadata screen or state, and I can simulate what happens if I successfully receive that metadata. That thing has finished, and so I can simulate that event. Now I can fetch the groups before joining, and basically this allows anybody, whether a developer or not, to go through and simulate that this behavior of the screen represents their expectations, and we haven't introduced any behavioral bugs into the application. This is local in my IDE, but there is actually a feature. Oops, I want to go to Chrome. That I've built this, and anybody on the team can visit this link, and I'll share that link later and get people who are interested. And we can go through and we actually get a slightly different visualizer, but we can add color to this visualizer, and it behaves in the same kind of way where we can simulate and go through. Okay, cool. I can look at my simulation controls, and I can trigger events that will cause further state changes and things like that. But all you need to know is you can look through and you can simulate what happens in this behavior. So the reason why this is beneficial to us is if you're able to reason through the logic, you're able to identify bugs without being able to read code. So ideally, Saul would be able to look and say, oh, well, when this thing happens, this other thing isn't supposed to happen. We can also add screens from our Figma designs to these charts online, and so we can see what the screen is actually going to look like in this state, which is super helpful. I didn't get to that yet, but I'll be working with Andrew closely to get these things kind of in line. And yeah, so I'm going to end the simulation here. But you can just read through and see the happy path is all in green here. Our error states are represented in red. Things like if API requests fail, or if things time out, or if a user was rejected, we have this kind of orange state. It's not quite an error, but it's not the happy path. And then we've got these edge cases that Fabry pointed out, attempting to join group timed out, to call special attention to them. And yeah, this will allow us to write more robust logic, and add better tests to our application, and to separate the behavior from the look of the app. And so to show you just the last thing I'll show here, group join screen, group invite screen. To show you the delta between prior to cleaning this up and after cleaning this up. So on the left is the old, on the right is the new, and all of the behavior that we have is actually represented in this little thing right here, and it's just makes it a little bit easier to consume that logic for us. And then the screen, this is actually the look of the application. And so what's important here is that this is very readable. Is group invite loading? Are we polling? What is the group invite metadata? What's our join status? Is there a group invite error, et cetera, et cetera? And then you can look at this UI and immediately understand what's going to happen, or what the UI should look like based on the state. So I'm getting up to 10 minutes here. It's a little bit long for a demo. I'm going to disclaim that in the beginning, and we can feel free to skip around. But I believe that that the one on the right is much easier to read and reason about, and it's also easier as a developer to test. And so that's why I built things this way. So happy to answer any questions, and yeah, thank you so much for watching.